Welcome back to Sports Psych. I'm here with Mike Haston, and he is the head coach of Maryville University. Correction, the first head coach in the history of ever for Maryville University's men's volleyball team. And congratulations on your
Thank you.
100th win. And I believe you're also the winningest coach at Fontbonne University history, if I remember correctly.
Right. So I'm the winningest at both schools right now. So I'm hoping to.
Nice. So it's like, look, no one can ever be the first, and then on top of that,
There
you
it
get to
is.
set that
Yeah,
record.
absolutely.
So we're gonna be covering a number of different topics, like your background in sports, kind of what got you into coaching, and then like your views on the current landscape of college athletics, because I think things have changed in the last couple of years and
Indeed.
whatnot. But before we get started, jumping into everything, can you just say a little bit about yourself as a person, where you grew up at, where you're from, and whatnot?
So I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. I moved to St. Louis when I was fairly young, and I've lived in St. Louis my whole life. I was in the Rittner School District for a long time, and then 8th grade I moved to Parkway North. Started at Northeast, and that's where I met you. Yeah, I got into volleyball pretty late, but it was a good program. A lot of my friends played, and it was something that sparked my interest pretty quick, and it's something that I haven't been able to get out of my system since. So it's a great field to be in, and I'm very grateful to be able to be around sports even as an adult.
Yeah, because I think for us it was kind of like a weird thing where like some of us did like volleyball randomly in like Northeast for like a
Yeah.
after school thing you could do, and it clicked with a lot of people in our class. And then like we go to high school, and our high school had, I didn't know this till I went to the North, but we had boys volleyball, and we actually had a competitive team. But then our class was the best class in the history of ever, because they went to
Absolutely.
state 3 years in a row. They went to technically quarterfinals 4 years in a row, but our class went 3 years in a row, won 2 years in a row. So you were two-time state champion
Right.
as well. And then we're going to pause there because I want to jump into just your background in sports, like growing up, like what sports you played, what got you into sports and
So
whatnot.
baseball was the big sport for me growing up, for my whole family. We didn't necessarily have the means to play multiple sports, so we all focused on baseball. We were a baseball family. That's how it went. My brother was big into baseball. My two older brothers were really big into baseball, and because of that, that was something that I was always into. I always loved the game, and from there, I moved schools. Things got a little dicey with trying to find my way onto a team. And honestly, the best thing that ever happened to me is I got cut from baseball. And when that happened, for a little while there, I was a little kind of like a rudderless boat. I didn't really have any kind of thing that I fit into. It was a new school. I was struggling a little bit there. And honestly, I didn't start playing volleyball until my grandpa died. My grandpa died sophomore year. And when he died, my mom was very, very sad, because he was a great man. And I didn't have any sports that I played at the time. I was kind of, like I said, just kind of directionless. And my neighbor, she said, "You should come out for the volleyball team. Volleyball tryouts are happening." And I was actually, I was to the point where it's like, well, listen, I don't know anything about volleyball. I've never played volleyball in my life, but I can't sit around here and watch my mom be sad all day. So I had to find something to do so I didn't fall into that same malaise. And from there, I was just a kid who had just hit his growth spurt. I was very short when I was in high school. I was 5'2", 150 pounds as a freshman. They had me on the D line.
I remember that now.
But then all of a sudden I was 6'1", and for whatever reason, I could jump out of the gym. So shout out to Coach Frankenfield at North for having some belief in me, because I was a kid that did not have the technical skills at all. All I had was the grit, determination, and a hellaciously high vertical to get me through until I started to figure out other things. And from there, I two-time state champion, definitely appreciate that. But I was, certainly junior year, I rode the bench the whole year. Going into senior year, there was only one spot that was going to be open, and that was my position. So I did everything I could. I worked extra jobs to pay for camps. I did everything I could to get better, so that A, I didn't get cut, and B, I wanted to start. And that was probably the first time where I took a goal that looked rather unattainable at one time and flipped it on its head and made that. Not only did I make the team, but I ended up starting. I never came out. And that was a big accomplishment for me because I was, with volleyball, it's a game where you're going to get more reps if your family's in a little bit better socioeconomic position, because it's very expensive to play club volleyball and things like that. So for a kid who didn't have those opportunities at a young age, I did everything I could to provide myself with opportunities and save money so I could do these things. And when I finally achieved that goal of making that team, and then we won state, and I got to be a part of it senior year a whole lot more. That was the first instance where I really thought, wow, you can do anything if you just put enough effort and focus into it. And I think from there, it opened this wider kind of picture of, oh wow, you could literally do anything you wanted if you just put in the same amount of effort into anything else. You could learn anything, and so that started me on a path to where I just had a whole lot more belief in myself, and it spiraled, and really it snowballed into a greater awareness of what I was capable of as a human being, and volleyball was the kind of the jumping point for that.
Okay. And for a little context here, so our high school is a public high school, and I would say most students are probably middle class, maybe lower middle class, but there are some people who were definitely working class and even below that. And for context, like, how much would you say, at least in the Midwest, is like the average like club volleyball team for like a person to put a kid in?
Once you get to about 14s, you're paying easily $2,000 to $3,000 a year in that. And it wasn't a whole lot different 20 years ago. The only difference is 20 years ago when I was going through it in St. Louis, there were only two clubs at the time, St. Louis High Performance and Missouri Thunder, and there was one team at each age level. Now you fast forward 20 years and you're looking at 3, 4, 5 teams at each age level. Yeah. If you want to get in and you don't have the means, or you want to get in and you're not good enough to make that first team, you can always make that second team or the third team. And even if you're not competing for the national championship at the club level, you're still getting the reps that you need to be better prepared for school next year. And I will say I would have liked to have had it a little bit easier. I would have loved to have had some of the resources that are out today, but just being able to see where it was and see where it's gone to makes me really, really happy for the growth of the game and the opportunities it's made for all the other kids that were kind of in the same boat as I was back then.
Yeah. And I think that the reason I was bringing that up is because, it's $2,000 to $3,000 a year, which is cheap compared to some other states. Sure. I know California, they're paying upwards of $20,000 sometimes, right, or $7,000. But then in St. Louis at the time, like the top schools were all private schools. So those kids had the means, and then they're playing club. But then it was kind of weird for like Parkway North and Parkway Central, because Parkway Central got beat in state, I believe was junior year by Parkway North. So district rivals, but it was like odd for two public schools to go and be in the championship. And our team had a very diverse makeup. Like half our volleyball team was Black. Right. And so it was like guys would play football, basketball, and coaches are like, you're going to go run track. They're like, no, I'm playing volleyball. Then they saw how competitive it was. And they were like, yeah, keep doing that because you're doing something in the spring. So like for you to do the work that you did, be going to camps, and you said you're not playing club?
I did play club. Yeah, I ended up playing club my senior year. And finally got to that point, but it was already too late to have it benefit me making the team or not. But I finally got there, but it was a long process. It was not easy. I had to sacrifice a lot of things that maybe I would have wanted to do at the time. But I'll tell you what, the biggest thing about what you said, and it was true, volleyball is predominantly, at least it was back then, it still holds true today. It's a sport that higher on the socioeconomic side of things. It's predominantly a white sport, and those kind of things probably are wrapped up in the whole idea of the socioeconomic aspect of it, right? There's a lot of resources that are involved in it, just getting your kid to all the different practices, all the different tournaments. I mean, this isn't just one game on a weekend. These are tournaments, and outside of the cost of the jerseys and the travel and the entry fees, you still have the cost of travel. You've got to pay for the hotels that your family's staying in.
Gas,
week out, the gas, the flights, whatever it is, and we did have some very, very talented players, but the beauty of how that team came together, and the reason why we weren't just a team with a couple of good players that won districts or something, but we actually won the state championship a few years, is all based on Chris Frankenfield. Chris Frankenfield had a vision for that at a time when it was a very marginalized sport in a lot of ways. He saw that not only did he have a couple good players who played club all the time, but he saw the Mike Lovelaces, the Mason Burks, Shaney Sodi, there's Dan Williams. There's all these guys that were they were not volleyball players.
Right.
Some of these guys came straight from the inner city. There was no volleyball community.
Yeah, and he's the head coach, by the way.
He was the head coach at Parkway North for years. Should be in the Hall of Fame. And now he's the head coach at Health Services, St. Louis College of Pharmacy, formerly St. Louis College of Pharmacy.
Yeah, and he recruited a lot of guys where it was like, if you had any inkling that you wanted to play, he was going to give you a shot. And it's like, we had cuts, but he was still going to give you a shot till you come back next year, try to get better and see like if you can make the team. And, like you said, he saw potential in you, like you had some foundations that you could stick with, like the things were clicking and to build from there. And it was just kind of like, if you want to be a part of the team, first and foremost, is like you would be. And even to the point where some guys who had been on the team got cut because he was like, this person shows up in a way where it's like you could tell like they really want to be here and they didn't have that sense of entitlement. So it's like, I'd rather have a guy who wants to be here, is going to do everything that I ask and not be argumentative, than a guy who maybe, he might be a little bit better, but it's kind of like, it's kind of like entitled because like they're used to playing club and whatnot. And it's like, no, I'll take those football players basketball players.
And that was the thing, Mason was what, 6'5" to 35 or something like that. And he was one of the best middles in the entire state. So, so much of it was just Frank having the vision to find these athletes and then say, hey, listen, you're not running track, come do this. And it wasn't just 1 year, it was building these people month after month from freshman year, from 8th grade year, all the way up through senior year. And the culmination of that was winning. It was a byproduct of all these little things that he put in place. And I wouldn't be here without Frankenfield seeing that talent in me and nurturing me along. But at the same time, going into junior year, he looked at me one day, he said, if you don't get your footwork right, I'm going to cut you.
I can attest to that because my footwork was terrible and I had a hard time learning, the rotation. Yeah. So I got cut sophomore, junior year and senior year because I still tried out. But I got cut from 2-time state winning team.
Absolutely.
Not somebody that was trash. So a friend of mine put that into perspective. He's like, bro, stop saying you got cut. You got cut from 2-time state champ team.
my own little brother got cut. Okay, so it was a very fair thing. It was you never felt like the guy was doing anything but looking out for you. Even when you got cut, you never knew that the guy didn't care about you.
Yeah, and I managed for the team for a couple of years, and because he was like, exactly. I was like, well, I still want to. He was like, okay, cool, and I got to practice because he's like, I need bodies, like get in there, get reps. It's gonna help you get better because, like you said, it's like. He's looking for the people that want to be there. And it's like, if you want to I'll let you practice with the team as much as you want if you want to be here and manage. And it's like, that's fine. Like, other guys can maybe get those reps, but at the same time, maybe they can go JV and split. They can do whatever. But he wanted people that wanted to be around. Like, it was a winning culture in so many aspects, like you said, because it's like there was so much team cohesion. So
right. And that man has done more for people that could never do anything for him than just about anybody. When you think about the best teachers that you ever had, you think about the impact that they had on other people. You think about the selfless nature of what they did. And I could go on. We could have a whole podcast about Chris Frankenfield and what he's done for the game and what he's done for so many people. I'm a volleyball coach and that kind of correlates, and it's great to play against him and still have a relationship with him to this day. But there's there's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people that have been, looked out for by that man over time. And that's really the legacy that, like I said, is the byproduct. The championship is a byproduct of the legacy that he built in investing in people. And that's something that to this day, I try to live up to. I don't think I could ever live up to it in the same way. We don't quite have the same personalities and things, but I try to be as much like Chris Frankenfield as I can in the way that I deal with people and the way that I make people feel heard. Those are things that I'll take with me my whole life.
And I got to test that. There was this guy I knew who I saw a lot of potential in, and I hit you up, and you're like, we're D1 is competitive with the scholarships, but you first thing you did was hit up Frankenfield, and he was like, hey, I can do a little bit of this and that in terms of if this kid wants to come here because I see the potential. Like, kid was 6'3", 6'4", could jump through the roof easily, and was picking up the sport. And it's like you said, it's like he's like, oh yeah, I could work with that. Like as is, I can work with that, and it's like was willing to be like, hey, here's what I can do if the person wants it. And I think, like you said, that kind of speaks volumes to the fact that you did that. You were willing to reach out to other people and look up stuff for other schools because for those of you who don't know, men's volleyball is one of the growing sports at the college level, and I think boys at the high school level in the country.
It's number one.
Yeah, and like you told me like there's a couple of HBCUs that have added volleyball, and like have them apply there and this and that, and I can make calls because I think like that speaks to like that again that culture that we had at North where and not just with volleyball but with football, a little bit with basketball, definitely with football I would say, and volleyball, it was like a culture of like, hey, this is going to keep a kid out of trouble, like cool, or I see some potential. And there weren't the opportunities for college at that time. So guys could be playing another sport that might help them more to get a scholarship and whatnot. But it was like people loved it so much. Like we had like sold out gyms, for a high school because of just how much fun we had and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, with that, I want to kind of go a little further into just your background. So in doing my research, because, psychologists, we do research, I saw that you were in the Hall of Fame at the University of Tennessee club volleyball team. So tell us about that transition from high school to college, just how it works with the club team.
I had some offers for athletic scholarships to play at some schools and then small schools in Iowa and places like that where I just wasn't ever going to go. From the time I was born, I was a Tennessee Volunteers fan. It's not even a fan. You're just
MIZZOU.
Yeah, right. The Haston family, they basically lived on the same farmland for 100 years. My grandpa was a sharecropper when he was young, and still the house that he grew up in is still on the land, right? So we've got this connection to Tennessee that is really a blessing because so many people just they're from where they live, and to have a very fragmented family in a lot of ways. Don't always come from the easiest of backgrounds, but to have that Tennessee family that is kind of always around, and you have that connection to your past, I think it really helps to give you a sense of identity. And so I really held to that and really appreciated being a part of that. And so I only applied to one school when I was getting out of college. I applied to University of Tennessee, and I did not have a plan for what was going to happen if I didn't get in there. And I got in luckily. And, looking back, I'm sure there were other opportunities out there, but there weren't for me. It's just something that you're raised into. So, I wanted to be a Vol. I went to Tennessee. They had a club team since the 60s, and even to that day in the early 2000s, the same guy, his name is Bud Fields, the same guy who started the program in the 60s, was now a very old man, but he was the godfather of this whole program, and he had these books and these connections to all these people, and just there was this culture of something that was bigger than myself that had been there since long before I was born. And so I had a blast there. I met some great friends. Shout out Max Tawney and Mark Mendak. They were two of my best friends on the volleyball team. And I loved every minute of it. To then have it happen, I think it was in 2017 or 18 where they had they convened the alumni, and they voted on the next Hall of Fame recipients for the 2000 to 2010 range. And for me and my two buddies to both be inducted into something that's been inducting people since the 60s, I just felt like that was a great honor. I mean, I loved my time there. I would run through a wall for for anything, for those people, for that culture. And for them to then recognize me, and then not be my own peers that recognize me, but people that didn't even really know me personally, but saw me from afar, or things like that. What a great feeling. What a great feeling.
And then can you tell us just, for those that don't know how the process works with club teams, and then the position you play, and just like the experience of it, because y'all do a lot of traveling and stuff, and
A lot of travel.
yeah.
So club is kind of interesting because you could go to a place like University of Tennessee where they've had the same club continuously going since the 60s, or you could go to a place that's student run, right? So there's anything from very, very culturally defined programs with history, all the way to things where it's run by whoever the next student is that gets voted president, right? So there's a lot of great volleyball talent that gets eaten up by the club system, especially back in the day when, when I started coaching in 2007, right when I graduated, there were probably 30 Division III teams. There were probably, between Division I and Division II, which is all in Division I, there were probably another 30, and then probably another 30 in AI teams. So there might have been 90 teams total, and now there's easily 200 plus, right? So it's grown a ton. I think Division III alone is at like 120 now.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And so the opportunities are out there for people that want them, and it makes it easy to match your academic goals up with a school that has volleyball. Back in the day, it wasn't so simple, but even still, you've got a lot of very good players that decide, for whatever reason, they're going to go to a state school, or they're going to, they don't want to go to a small school in the middle of a cornfield or something like that. They want to go to a bigger school. They have bigger academic goals or things like that. Or and so you've got some very good club teams. I mean, University of Arizona, they would be a top 15 Division I team probably. Okay. Any of the schools in California that have D1 teams still have a club team, and those club teams would still be very, very good. So there's a lot of good talent out there. At the time, that was the only other option. If you were Division I, you were among the very, very best. So you add more opportunities. Certainly, you could spread out some of that talent. But club for me was a great time. There was a lot of traveling. We did a lot of the traveling either by vans, or we would drive ourselves, which is way more fun. But everything was tournament mode. Nowadays, guys play one game a day. If they play 2 games a day, then they're complaining about injuries or something. But we would play, 8 matches in a day and wouldn't even blink at it. But it was a different time back then, and I'm certainly there's still some very, very, very talented club teams and very talented players that play club out there. A lot of guys who exhausted their eligibility at the Division I level, Division III level, whatever. Now they're into grad school or something. They still want to play. So there's a lot of that going on. But the growth of the game has been a blessing for the sport and for guys who are looking for opportunities. The only difference now is outside of certain leagues that you can go into, for the most part, you need to take care of your grades, and that's something that if you don't have that focus from a freshman on, it's gonna bite you in the end.
Because you got to go to practices, all that. It's well, depending on the school, it could be well organized or a little rough in some instances. But
and the inconsistency of not having that infrastructure in place really lends itself to the ups and downs of whether or not a team's good year to year. So when you have the infrastructure, when you have the alumni in place, the people who can keep that going, despite the constant revolving door of graduates and things like that, those are the clubs that really could hold their own at any level. And the other ones are still there for opportunities for people who just love the game. I mean, volleyball is a great sport where you can play it until you're 80 years old.
Yeah, and I've seen some guys where it's like they've had some and they're getting better because they joined the club team, and it's like if you have some potential, a lot of them are willing to work with you. Some you could have almost no potential. They're still like, if it's going to help us have a team and you enjoy being here and we enjoy having you, then you're welcome to come and be a part of it. So I want to ask about your transition into coaching. How did that go for you? What was that process like?
So once again, the weird thing about volleyball is every time I started to get a little directionless in life.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated college, I thought, oh, I'm going to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to do. But I was still not real excited about anything that I was doing. I was graduating. I'm on to the real world. I'm like, man, I am not prepared for this whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And right at that time, I graduated from Tennessee. I came back to St. Louis. I got my master's degree in teaching while I was here. So I was a TA for like 4 or 5 years while I was getting my master's degree done. And right away, Fontbonne University was starting their program. That was their first year NCAA. And at that point, I was a TA at a middle school. The head coach was a teacher at that middle school. Shout out Matt Bright. And from there, what I did was I paid money my first year to be a coach on that team. I was a volunteer assistant, but I had to pay for my own travel. I worked my way from that position to a paid assistantship for the next 4 or 5 years. And then when the coach at the time, when he decided that he was done, he referred me. I got the job. I inherited a team with 6 guys, and I believe it was a 18 and 136 record over 5 years. And it was a very uphill battle from there. I had a lot of people that were telling me, why don't you just coach high school? Why would you put yourself through that? And I think when people tell me I can't do something, it just makes me want to do it more. I'm just very stubborn like that. And, so coming back from college and not really having a good grip on who I was or what I wanted to be. And then there was volleyball giving me another way back in, inviting me back in. And from there, it was a process of kind of building my self-worth in the sport. I was surrounded by a lot of coaches that knew a whole lot more than I did, and a lot of teams that had, came from better schools and better organization. And here I am with this team of 6 guys. One of them was a baseball player. One of them was 5'6", and he was playing in the front row. And to take that and to build it into something that by the time I left, they went to the Elite Eight. That was a very proud moment. I mean, the guys that were with me during those times, any one of them would have just quit because it was too tough or because it was too embarrassing to get blown out like we were getting blown out sometimes. Any one of those guys quits, this whole thing's different.
Right.
But I am here today based on the grit and determination of a bunch of people that will never get the credit for it. And I very much look at it like, I get a lot of credit for things that really comes down to how these players were raised, their mental resilience. And if they didn't have that, and maybe I imparted some of that into them, I guess, but if they didn't have that, it would have been even more difficult. We did have people quit on us. We did have people that, kind of decided it wasn't for them. But at the same time, I had other guys who came out of nowhere and decided that they did believe in me and believe in the cause and transferred in and things like that. So they tell us, it's just a job. Don't take it so personally. I take it very personally because I'm putting my entire life into this.
Yeah.
And so the guys who didn't want to be there, the guys who decided they wanted to go on for bigger and better things, or that's fine. You do you, but I don't have the same love for you I got for the guys that stuck it out. Right. And so I guess that can be kind of vindictive, but I have a lot of pride and a lot of respect for the people who helped me get to where I am. I think I would have been a little bit better served with some mentors along the way. But it just wasn't in the cards. So I had to do a lot of growing up. I had to learn a lot from the mistakes that I made and own those mistakes in order to get there. But none of it would have mattered if it wasn't for the guys and the amount of determination and belief they had in me to get here. I mean, I'm standing on the shoulders of people who, gave everything to in the end have me be in this position now.
It kind of sounds like your process kind of like, and this will probably relate to you because you're a dad. So it's like, but like parents, like you have this idea of maybe how you want to parent, and then it's like the reality is here when the kid comes, and it's like there so much changes because like their temperament and all that. You're like, okay, I got to be a lot different than maybe what I had planned. And it's like, it sounds like, because especially for men's volleyball, like there wasn't that same structure in the area. So you're having to make it and try to figure out like, well, what's going to work, what's going to stick, what's going to be the best for me, the team, and the players. and there's a lot of growth that happens. There's a lot of opposite of growth that needs to happen at times. You got to grow back. You know, you got to be flexible and dynamic. So yeah, it kind of, I guess, is that a similarity there that resonates with you?
The big thing for me was, you know, I watch The Simpsons a lot, right? So there's this episode where Homer becomes a professional boxer, and it's not because he's the best boxer. It's because his head is just so thick that when they punch him, they punch themselves out because he doesn't go down.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, I look at that, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's a superpower or not, but that's definitely the type of person that I am. I'm just too stupid to quit.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think people buy into how genuine I am about it. I mean, I love this game. You know, I love being able, the things that I went into teaching about, and I was a TA for 5 years, and I was a teacher for another 10 years after that before I got to go full-time coaching. But the things that I liked most about teaching were the impact that you make on people's lives. And that's partly because, like I said, I was a directionless kid who needed a little extra from people. And thankfully I got that from some important people along the way. You know, I don't think anybody was really, you know, outside of my family, I don't think any of these people that helped me along the way were there to help me for too long. But when they were there, I was listening, and I was trying to learn from them. I was trying to learn from their mistakes. I was trying to learn from my mistakes. And I just listened to any advice, any little tidbit of advice that somebody would give me. I was trying to hold on to it. And you know, I think that in the end that served me well, to be grateful for what I did have and not be so upset about what I didn't have, and just use what I had to the best of my ability to get where I am. It was a lot of growth, and it takes a lot of difficult conversations with yourself, because you can't always be right.
Right.
As much as you want to be, and as much as your ego wants to say, I'm right. When, you know, my mom told me years ago, she said, if everybody's telling you you're wrong, you might want to listen.
Yeah.
You know, they're not all lying to you.
Right. Right.
And so being a kid that didn't have a lot of direction growing up, to have people that came along at brief moments in my life to help me, even if they were the same age as me, you know, I can see that, you know, this person was raised really well and had great male figures in their life, and you can tell, and it's like, I'm picking up on what he's dropping.
Right.
You know, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to learn from your mistakes. I'm going to learn from my mistakes, and I'm going to pick up whatever I can. I'm just going to put it all together. And one day I'm going to, hopefully this culminates in me having a better understanding of how I'm supposed to lead people, and how I'm supposed to help them with things that I would have probably needed help with at the same time, you know? And I think that, being 23 when I started, and you know, my first year coaching, my first year as an assistant coach, I was 6 months older than the seniors. So, there's a big difference between how you relate to them then, and then fast forward to having kids, and then it all changes. You're like, wait a second. These are somebody else's children. All right. And then it puts it all in the context of what I need to be doing. And as you get a little bit older, every year I get a little bit older than these kids, they get younger and younger. But, as you get older and hopefully a little bit wiser, you not only realize the mistakes you made, but you realize that everybody's going to need something a little bit different. You know, it's very similar to, I was a special ed teacher for 10 years, 15 years. And it's not a one size fits all approach. You've got to really understand people to understand what motivates them. And you got to find out what drives them. You got to find out what's behind them, so you know what they're looking at going forward. Yeah. And if you can do that, then you can really tap into what they're best at. It can't just be the old model of it's my way or the highway, and you know that kind of old model that doesn't work. You know, when you're dealing with people, when you're trying to lead people, you need to understand people. And it's not just, like I said, one size fits all. Yeah.
So I think there's something big there. This is my psych brain, so it's like picking up stuff, but like is vicarious learning, which I'm big on, because that's something that helped me. Was like I learned by like you said, watching people, listening to people. It's kind of like even people where it's like they doing all the things that I shouldn't do. I'm still learning from that. It's like, yeah, that was not a good idea for them to do that, and that helped me know, like, yeah, don't follow that path. Let's look at all these other paths and see what can help us. And I think that's one of the things that I love about sport, because like for me, especially with volleyball, it's like I lived in 4 or 5 different states, and first thing I would do when I moved somewhere I don't know anybody, where's the volleyball at? then I started making friends with people or having acquaintances or whatever, just something to do to, keep busy and whatnot. And so it's like, I think that's one of the things where it's like you can build a community very easily with it. You can find a community very easily with it and just go from there. And then on top of that, it's like there's the benefits of just being active. But I think the big thing is like you were saying, is like there's so much ways in which we can like learn and grow from our sporting experience. And I think this is something that's big for a lot of coaches, which is like you said, learning to do things differently and, be able to pull from different aspects. Cause I'm sure for you, like there's so much from just your training education and special education that you probably didn't realize you might need as a coach to help student athletes be successful, both athletically and academically. Cause if you're not successful academically, then you can't be here to play.
Right.
You got to have the grades. And it's like, maybe, you might see something going on with the kid and it's like, yo, like, this ain't, we need to go talk to some people about this and whatnot to get them what they need. And I think that kind of taps, there's a couple things I want to tap in, which is, when you look at the landscape of college athletics, and you see like some of the stuff that has been talked about regarding like mental health, especially with like, a lot of Olympic athletes, professional athletes are talking more openly about it. We've had a whole COVID happen and you got, a lot of young people are going to college and they've been impacted by that in ways that we're still really trying to figure out from like, research and tangible experiences. I'm wondering for you, like, will you see like what the NCAA has done, different universities, and just as a whole, the whole mental health conversation, what comes up for you in regards to that and working with student athletes?
The thing we preach in my program is the mental resiliency. You're going to have stressors in your day. You cannot hide from them. They are going to find you. You have to embrace them. You have to stand up to them. You have to acknowledge within yourself what you can handle and what you can't handle. But I think the old days of toughing it out, that's dated. That's not the way we do things. And I think that most people that live through those times would even say, I don't want other people to have to suffer like I did. Just because I'm hurt doesn't mean we got to let other people. We know more now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, to me, so much about mental health is not letting things gnaw at you. Right. I tell the guys, it's never about the mountain that you have to climb. That's never going to be the thing that gets you. It's going to be the pebble in your shoe. Right. It's going to be that little thing that you didn't take care of when it was a little problem, and you let it get bigger and you let it get bigger and you denied it and denied it. Next thing you know, you've got a hole in your shoe and you've got a blister on your foot and you can't make it up the mountain. It has nothing to do with the mountain. Don't blame the mountain for that. Right. We and everybody comes from different cultures and different upbringings. They respond to trauma in different ways. Right. And one thing I didn't quite understand, although it was in my psych textbooks and everything, but I didn't really understand it until I had kids, was that, when a baby has like gas or something like that, they cry like crazy. You're like, why are you crying like crazy? It's just gas. Well, that's the toughest thing they've ever faced. That's the most pain they've ever been through. So they're crying like that's the worst pain they've ever been through. And so if you kind of expand that idea out to, somebody who's dealt with a lot of loss as a kid or a broken home or things like that, right? A simple day-to-day stressor from somebody else, that's not even going to phase that kid, right? But yeah, and then you say, well, that's not a big problem. Look at the problems that this person has. Why is that problem such a big deal? Well, it's because that's the biggest thing they've been through. So so it's all relative to who you are and what your human experience is. And I think I think the worst thing we can do, and I was definitely guilty of this, and I'm still guilty of this at times, is I didn't always have the easiest upbringing. So when I look at it, I'm like, what's your excuse? Are you being soft? Like, well, the idea of that, you have to kind of get past that, because I'm not living your life. So I can't put the toughness and the lessons that I've learned and my now 20 years plus of life experience over you. I can't put that on you. You don't have that. You haven't been through that part of your journey yet. So and even I don't even like the word babying somebody or something, but you've got to work with people in the the means that they have at their own disposal to combat these issues, right? You can't, just say, well, I did it this way, so you can do it. Everybody's so different. So the first step in really identifying the mental health problems or helping people that are struggling, because people don't like to talk about it, is just getting on the same level with them. Who are they? Where are they from? What are their brothers and sisters like? What are your goals? And if you don't, and this isn't like something that the first time you meet them, you have this giant conversation, but over time, you need to get to know who these people are and find out what makes them tick. Because there are guys on my team that I could scream at, and that's what they respond to. And there's other guys that screaming at them is only going to, trigger their defense mechanisms. Now they're not listening to anything.
Yeah, they're like, Coach hates me. And it's
right,
like,
exactly. Right.
Never said that.
When actuality, the worst thing for a coach to be doing is to not talking to you at all.
Yes.
When a coach is not talking to you at all, that means they're done. But so the first step is an understanding of your part. You can't expect that the players are going to have that understanding first. It's your job as the coach to be the first line of understanding of the context of these people that you're bringing in from all over the country. And I think if you fail to do that because you're so busy worried about winning, or you're so busy worried about some very, acute aspect of your experience, and you miss out on how we're leading people, you've lost it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's what I when I work with coaches and capacity, I tell them is like, if you don't know your players, I was like, at the end of the day, it's like, that's going to be the biggest thing. It's going to take the littlest thing. The littlest thing can happen. They're going to take it as coach doesn't like me or anything else. And you just don't know. It's the same, like for those of you who have kids, it's like little kids where you say something and they interpret completely different than what you said. And they think, oh, you hate them. And it's like, no, like, little kids often think that their parents hate them because they're mad. And it's like, you still love your kid, even though you're mad at them. The part of the reason you're mad at them is because you actually care about them. And, college players will think my coach doesn't like me because I'm having trouble with this. And it's like, maybe they're frustrated. Some coaches go about it horribly,
Sure.
And it's like their intent, they have good intentions, their impact might be terrible, and that's not okay. And then you have some people where it's like, they have good intentions, they're going about it in an appropriate manner, but it's being processed differently for a plethora of reasons. Like, like there are some players, it's like, I'm sure with volleyball, you may have experienced, but you might have some players who they've never been coached by a male before.
That happens, yeah.
And then it's like, they're like just the gender dynamics that exist of how boys and men are raised culturally, especially within the sport context, where it's like this coach, might be talking more sternly. And it's like, to them, it's like, coach yelled at me. It's like, literally didn't yell at you. I was assertive. And was I angry? You could probably tell with my tone of voice, but I literally did not yell at you. But they don't. And so you got to know your players, because if you know them, they'll run through a wall for you. But if you don't, it's like, as soon as something happens, they're looking for a reason to check out.
Right.
And it's like, you can't have structure in your sport if it's a Rolodex of players constantly, and I think with the transfer portal, we're seeing that a lot of places.
It is a scary time for players who don't find their right home right away. And it makes it more difficult, because when I'm talking to these people, when I'm going through the recruiting process, and as you know, even when they're not necessarily going to come to my school, if I can tell that they don't have parental support, or they're a first generation kid, maybe not to college, but first generation going through these kind of processes with recruiting stuff, sometimes they'll say, listen, it's not going to work out with us, but I'm here to help you. You got a question, ask, because I don't have a dog in the fight anymore. You're not coming to my school anyway, but what can I help you with? Because I can clearly tell that, the worst thing in the world for me is when you're talking to the kid and the parents are like, well, this is all his decision. No, I get it's his decision, but you have life experience you could be adding to this, and instead you're letting him just, well, make whatever mistake you want, and in 10 years from now, I'll just say, well, you made the decision. No, that's a cop-out. You have the life experience. You need to help him. You need to be giving them some kind of understanding. And when I can tell that that's not happening, I look at it like, this kid's in for a world of hurt. They're gonna go somewhere. It's gonna be based on some minor factor. They're gonna get there. They're gonna hate it. And then they're subject to not only the transfer portal, but they're subject to the incoming classes of freshmen. They're subject to any number of coaching changes. I mean, we just played a team the other day that had 3 coaches in a month.
Oh, okay. Wow.
What kind of, how do you set up a program like that? And I think that it's even tougher. Then you have COVID where kids are staying for 6 years. Okay. So you've got before it was the normal cycle of, okay, you're coming in as a freshman, you may not play right away because this guy's in his 4th year, but by sophomore year, you're competing and we need you ready for that. So you could maybe redshirt a year or whatever. Now you've got kids staying until they're 23, 24 years old. And
Older
you're
than
18, older than that even.
There's
right?
like a guy for college football, he was granted his 9th year of eligibility.
I don't know how that even works.
I
thought there was a clock.
Yeah, I was told there was a clock. It's like as soon as you start college, that clock ticks whether you're playing or not.
Right.
And
you get that one red shirt, and I guess it can be.
You're gonna be playing with his kids like LeBron.
Exactly right.
And so, I think, like I said, that's important because like a lot of kids, like they fall for the glitz and glamour, and it's like for parents, like you gotta know your kids, like your kid can't be more than 20 minutes away from you.
Right.
They're not gonna and like you said, everybody's different. This boulder might be nothing for them, but then they get this pebble that they never experienced, and it's like they go to college and maybe they're you have first generation college students, but then also you have non-traditional, is what I call it, first generation college students, where like maybe their parents worked their whole life through school, they never went away and was just a student, and then so they don't have anyone to kind of tell them what to expect of little things like living in the dorms. And so they go, and it's this huge adjustment, and they start feeling overwhelmed. And, one of the things I see working with college students is adjustment disorder, where they experience severe depression and or anxiety, because it's like, they don't know how to strive in this environment. And it's so stressful for them. And it's like you said, they fell for the glitz and glamour. They go to a school and it's like, well, the coach that recruited me is not here, or how coach was with my parents and stuff is not how they coached the team. And I didn't get a chance to see that. And it's like you said, some players, they don't respond to yelling. And this coach yells at everybody because they don't care.
Right. Right. And you do get the situation too, where you look at that roster size, right? And I get, you have to have a certain level of depth. Very important to have depth. But a lot of schools are tuition driven, right? So they'll bring in 25, 26, 30. There's some schools, some very well-known schools got 30 plus guys on their team, right? There's no way as a coach you know everybody on your team that way. There's no way. And the person that you meet when you meet with the coach for a couple of minutes at your club tournament, or they come on campus for an on-campus visit, that's more or less the coach's representative. It's like when you go on a first date, nobody's going to come out with all their baggage right away. And so I don't have any misconceptions about the fact that, I've got flaws in my personality and things like that too. And there's certain types of people that may not click with me really well. But ultimately I want them to know that I do care about their futures, and that anything that you want to really know about this program outside of what we're talking about right now, I want you to talk to the players. Talk to them when I'm not around. Ask them how things are. Ask them how it is when the honeymoon period's over. Because in the fall we get a certain amount of time. We get a 45-day window where we can practice basically like it's the season, and outside of that, it's more open gyms and things like that. And during that time, everybody's playing, right? Everybody gets a chance. But once the season comes, not everybody gets to play anymore.
Right.
And so there's always that first semester era of good feelings where, everybody feels like more of a contributor. But then you get down to the reality of the game, and you've got, on my team, I've got 19 guys that were all among the best players on their high school teams or best players on their club teams or whatever. And now we've got to deal with the fact that you're not playing. And
that doesn't mean you're not good or great. You can be great and somebody's greater.
Right. Yeah. And especially at the Division I level, it's the one level, because it's not like that at Division I women's, NAIA, men's or women's, Division III. They have more subs than they know what to do with. At the Division I level for men's, we play by the international level, so we only get 6 subs. And if you come in to serve for somebody and then you come out, you're done for the set. So everybody's got to be a 6 rotation guy. It only leaves a certain amount of room for you. So if you're not ready to be some sort of a role player, have some sort of a role early on, what do you do with that information? Because a lot of times they haven't had to deal with the resiliency of not being the best. They've always been the best. They've always gotten by on that. Now you don't get by on that because now not only are you good, but not as good as somebody who's been playing for 3 years. but there's also a physiological difference between an 18-year-old and a guy who's 23 years old who's been working out for 5 straight years.
Right.
You know,
And I think there's another part too where, and I think this is really important for student athletes to understand they're going to college. Is like, you may objectively be better. So you're stronger, faster, jump through the roof. However, like you said, skill wise, it's kind of like the floor and ceiling are a lot closer. And so these other intrinsic factors matters. Like, yeah, you know what? Like, you are athletically, you're athletically a better athlete, as well as, but this person is a better volleyball player than you, or
right.
you're a better volleyball player and athlete than them. However, their leadership is something on the court that it's like they'll see, oh, these people are in the right spot on serve receive or whatever sport it is. Like, get your alignment right. Then that takes something you don't have to do, or maybe you can't do it right. You know, you're not on the court to have the same aim. It's like, this person sees the things that I would have to normally correct in film. They correct it there. So now, yeah, it's like they're not the best in so whatever ways of athleticism and just sport knowledge or whatever it may be, but they're fixing these things that makes the team be more cohesive
Right.
and play better. And it's like, if I lose that, yeah, you're jumping through the roof and can spike on anybody. But what about defense, right?
Right.
What about the ball's not always coming to you?
Well, and I tell the guys too, any one of you, if we put a camera on you while you practice,
Mhm.
we can make a highlight video out of all the bounce balls that you had or all the great, but that's feeding your ego. That's not real. What are you doing if we do that 10 times in a row?
Mhm.
You know, where's your consistency?
Mhm.
Every one of you is a phenomenal player by any stretch of the imagination. From any real people that are watching you, they're all say, wow, that kid's great. That kid's great, right?
Mhm.
But what are you going to do when I give you 10 times in a row to do it? What are you going to do in the match? And then on top of that, you've got to factor in the other part of it, which is, what are you doing when I'm not looking? Right? Because everybody works hard when I'm looking. You'd be an idiot to not work hard when I'm there, or when, you know, there's a bunch of girls in the crowd, or there's you know, you're on ESPN or whatever. Everybody works hard.
Your parents are there watching. Yeah.
I'm not going to clap for you working hard in those situations. That you're supposed to. The bare minimum of being on this team is that you work hard, right? So I'm not clapping for you when nobody sees you working out, but you went in to work out. That's what you're supposed to do. So the things that made you stand out before are now commonplace. And, you know, sometimes guys don't know how to deal with it, and girls too. I've coached girls as well, but guys don't know how to deal with when their best just isn't good enough. It could be good enough. You could go to 60 other teams and it'd be good enough to start there. You could go down a lower level and they'll kiss your butt all day to make you happy, and you could feel great about yourself. But where we are right now, you're subject to the guys in front of you. And if you want to take their spot, you got to be better than them.
Yeah.
And I run into problems sometimes because, frankly, I don't care how old you are. If you're the best player, you're going to play. And so when you care about your players as much as I do, and I'm not the only one certainly, but you want them all to be successful. You feel like they're an extension of your family. So those tough decisions that, you know, I get paid to do, right? Those are tough decisions because I genuinely care about the people that I have. I care about their well-being. I care about how their experience here is going to be a leaping point for the rest of their lives. You know, and these are all things that I've gotten a whole lot more cognizant of as I got older, that I maybe would have been more focused on winning or some little aspect of things as I was younger. But as I get older, I look at this, I'm like, these are all kids who are coming up. They all believe in themselves. They all can do great things in this world. Let's make sure that this time where, you know, this little in-between time where you're not a kid anymore, but you've got responsibilities similar to an adult right before the real world comes and nobody's clapping for you to go to work. How can I make the most out of this so that you realize, like I realized, you know, when I was doing everything I could to just make a team all those years ago. And then I realized, wait, I'm capable. I can do anything if I put this kind of effort in. That's what I want them to realize too. And so it kind of gets muddled sometimes when you're focused on that, but they're focused on the fact that they start to feel a decline in their self-worth because they've got all these friends that want to come to the games and they don't get any PT, and at the same time it's like, well, I also have that obligation to winning, so I've got to put out the best people, and how do you respond to that is going to dictate a lot about the type of person you're going to be when you run into these same situations, but they're even more difficult as an adult. because we all think that the volleyball or whatever sport is the most important thing. Like I say, you don't have anything else to go on a lot of times. So it is the most important thing in your life at that time. But I'm not, like I tell the guys, I'm the ghost of Christmas future. I am telling you that there are going to be much harder times in your life. And you've got to learn these lessons now so that you can navigate these stormy seas later on when we're not around and you're on your own.
Yeah, yeah. Someone I knew, they coached college soccer in California, like a D1 school, and it's like one of the things they talked about was like sports are a parable for like, or they're like an allegory for like war, and they're like a parable for like life, because it's like they kind of will put you in situations where it's like they will echo something you might go through in the future. It's like, how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with XYZ and be better for it in some way? Because, it's like you said this at the very beginning, we're going to deal with adversity in different ways. And it's how do you develop resiliency in the face of that? Because it's going to happen at some point. Like you said, it's like, you have a job to do. It's like, yeah, I'm sure you want everybody to get in the game.
Would. Yeah, if I could in a perfect world, I would.
But then it's like, well, I ain't got a job. Like you go home, it's like, hey, I got fired because I was letting everybody get playing time.
Everybody likes me though.
Yeah, and it's like, well, no, and I think sometimes student athletes, they lose the sight of like, it still is a business, and people's livelihoods are literally hanging in the balance of this. You got some coaches in some sports where it's like they're trying to, like how you were earlier in your career, they're trying to get on somewhere and they're sacrificing, not making any money or doing any of this or that, sleepless nights to get to a point. And if the head coach gets fired for some reason, that's a wash.
Right.
Not everybody has the flexibility for different reasons as a coach to move to different areas to be able to go start a team and whatnot, or be, especially for like men's volleyball, is like maybe they're not as interconnected in the volleyball world, unless they, like I think for girls and women, because they've been in that, there's so many more opportunities, there's so many more coaches and networks that they know.
Sure.
That they can benefit from that in some way. But it's like for men's volleyball, for boys volleyball, it's like there's not as many opportunities. Some of the best players I knew, they were like, well, I learned to play volleyball because I would always be going to my sister's practices. Right. And it was kind of like, they let me kind of just, but it's like, I never got playing experience until maybe high school, where they moved and like a coach took a chance on them to let them walk on or whatever it was. And they learned to play like actually system wise there. And so I think there's so much nuance that like, it's like, we got to see both sides of it to figure out how do we address some of the systemic issues with the cultural issues that exist on different teams and whatnot. Because at the end of the day, it's like, this is a tough decision for a young student athlete to make, and it can impact their life going forward. And then for the coaches, something can happen there where it impacts their livelihood and then their children, their family in some way. And we got to, I think, be mindful of that. And I think the other aspect of that I wanted to kind of ask you about is like, you kind of touched this a little bit already, but just like, what are your thoughts with like the transfer portal? And with that too, what would you tell young student athletes who are maybe getting ready to go to college, like what they should be asking about, looking for? Again, you kind of touched on this a little bit, to like coaches and players, and what should they expect? Because I think sometimes, we have this expectation, like, I'm gonna come out there and it's gonna be like Deion Sanders going to Colorado.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not. You're not Deion, like, you ain't got it like that. Or even if you do, there may be other things you don't know about. So what would you tell a young student athlete, or let alone their parents, that they should be asking about, thinking about, and what they should be expecting when they head into their first season?
So first and foremost, I came from a Division III school,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there weren't scholarships, there. And the biggest thing was, if you're going to come in here and you're going to pay all this money to be here, we need to make sure this education works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing. And that's my mom. My mom's sitting on my shoulder right now, complaining about how I needed to get a college degree,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll never take it away from you. And
Mm-hmm.
I still hear that every day. But I take that same model into Division I. It's, let's make sure that this school works for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your plans? What do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
The volleyball's not going to be here for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can go pro. You're going to be done by 35 at the latest. If you had a great lengthy career and your knees are going to be throbbing, and you're going to, at that point, you're going to need that degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that where I was originally, we had built a community of support within the volleyball team that made for some great outcomes post graduation that probably weren't as common with the rest of the school. And that was something that I'm not exactly sure how we did that outside of just recruiting the right people and me kind of harping on it. But I carry that over now, and I could say that, first of all, it feels really good to be in a school where you would actually send your kids academically. Okay, so you don't have to sell that. There's no selling. There's no, hey, don't look over in this corner. Just focus on what I'm talking about. I don't like that used car salesman stuff. I don't have to do any of that at this school, which keeps my conscience really, really clean. But I would tell the kids, have a conversation about who you want to be in the next 50 years. You know, the decisions that you make, you're gonna have to answer those decisions when your kids ask you the questions. When your kids are asking, why don't I have those opportunities? Or they're saying, hey dad, hey mom, thanks for these opportunities. I'm really glad you took care of your business when you were younger, right? So first and foremost is, who do you want to be? And then how can that program or that program or that program or that coach or whoever, how can those things help get you there? And if you're not looking at it that way, if you're looking at like, well, I'm just going to go play volleyball and I don't know, I think I might get a business degree and I don't really know what I want to do. You are way out of line with what's important here. I don't care if you're an All-American. That is not going to generate the money that it's going to generate for you to have a solid career, right? And I'm a college coach, so I get to be a kid forever, and I would never trade this job for anything in the world. I love it. But for the people that go in the real world and get real jobs, you're going to have to either support a family or support yourself. You're going to have to navigate the potential financial calamities of the future, and all these things you cannot prepare individually for. You have to prepare yourself to navigate the stormy seas. You can't prepare yourself for one wave, right? They're going to keep coming at you. And so there's the mental resiliency side of that. And there's also the idea of, who are you? If you don't know who you are, how are you going to pick a program or a coach or a cultural philosophy of the school that's going to help you with your goals if all you're worried about is whether or not I'm going to get to play volleyball at some random school in Iowa or something.
We're not picking on Iowa, by the way.
I just say Iowa because it's cold up there.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of big cities. It's like you're making the decision to go there to play volleyball. And then you're hoping, well, maybe the academic side of things will pan out. That's the wrong way to do it. That's just the wrong way to do it. And I know it works out for some people, but I think overall, we get a lot of people at Maryville that are first interested in the nursing program. It's one of the best nursing programs in the country. And then they're like, okay, well, I've got these different nursing programs that line up. These are the ones that have men's volleyball. Let me go that route. And I think that's a much more responsible route to go from an academic standpoint. But you need to find out more than what the coach is going to tell you in an email. You need to find out if everything you're hearing from the coach is all rainbows and roses and everything sounds too good to be true. It definitely is, because this is a messy process. At any given point, I probably have a third of my team that's in some way a little unhappy with me. They're not playing as much as they want. They feel like they're not getting the time or whatever it is. There's always somebody that's going to be a little disappointed in what it is. And we try to take that locus of control and say, look, man, this isn't an external thing that's making this happen. This is you. If you get better at these things, your outcome will be better. And if you're not asking people the tough questions, you're going to get here and be at the mercy of whatever is already here, right? But if you're doing your due diligence, which some people do, you got to start the process early. Hard to start the process early if you don't have good grades early. So that's the first thing. From the time you get to freshman, you've got to take care of your grades, because you don't know. Maybe you'll go D1 and your grades won't matter. You can have a 2.5 and get somewhere. Fine. But if you only have a 2.5 and your skill's not at the D1 level to play football at Colorado or wherever, you're screwed. And then you're at the mercy of maybe trying to make the football and the academics work. We're just going to try and make it work. Is that what you want for your life? You get one, you get one life to live, and you want to be at the mercy of all these other factors when you could have teased out a lot of these factors early on.
Right.
And that's where, like I said, that's where I think the parents come in too. Don't sit back and just let them figure it all out.
Yeah.
Just because you had to figure it all out, you're going to transfer that to them. You have wisdom, you have experience.
Right.
Even if you didn't make all the right decisions, they can still learn from your mistakes, can't
Right.
they?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's the first thing. You do not want to just go somewhere and say, well, if it doesn't work, I'll go in the transfer portal. That is a nightmare. You do not want to be a part of the transfer portal. I think that last year it was like under 20% of the kids that went in the transfer portal for men's volleyball actually ended up on at a school the next year. And so many of those people were big time D1 guys. You know, you go from Hawaii, you're probably going to the transfer portal and find yourself at a new destination without a whole lot of effort. You're going from some of these other places where maybe you didn't get an opportunity to even get on the court. No coaches have film on you. So at the best case scenario, they don't have any film on you because you didn't play. What are they? You're 20 years old now. And they're going off a film you made at 17. Yeah. Or I could just pick somebody that's clearly coming straight out of high school. They're going to get more money too. That's the other thing about this process. If you're transferring in and you've got over 30 credit hours, and it's different places, but at Maryville it's 30 credit hours. If you're transferring in with less than 30 credit hours, you can still qualify for the freshman scholarships. If you're over 30 credit hours, you're transfer scholarships, and they're not good. And and Maryville's got some of the better transfer scholarships. Most schools do not cater to transfer students monetarily. So when you get to that point, not only did you back yourself into a corner with a bad decision right out of the gate, but now you want to leave, and now you're going to get next to no money. So now your debt is piling up as well. Now you're at the mercy of a team that's already been there. You're trying to join it. When you're a freshman, when you're an incoming freshman, you're trying to link up with this coach and his philosophy for that class as opposed to this class and this class. When you are transferring in, you're jumping into something that's already created, and you're hoping to kind of wedge your way into this or that. Sometimes that works because you can see at a certain school, they've got a glaring need for your position. And sometimes it's, well, I think I can do that. Well, I'm better than that kid. And you hope it works. But then you go there and it doesn't work. And now what are you going to do? Transfer again? You know, and now you're in this whole spiral of, I try to be as honest as I can with these kids, because even if you don't want to come here, I don't want you to come here and make a mistake.
Right.
I don't want you to come here and not be fully committed to us. I don't want you to come here and all of a sudden your future's in jeopardy because you don't know what you want to be, and now you're just going to kind of feel it out as you go. Terrible way to do it. And then, you know, to throw in this transfer portal business where it seems like every year you're getting, I mean, there are some teams that half their team goes in the transfer portal, you know, and when that stuff happens, not only you flood the market with transfers, but if I'm a coach that's looking for a specific need, do I want to risk my money on a freshman who's unproven at this level when I clearly see in the transfer portal that there's this kid, and this kid who have all done it? This kid's got 500 career kills in 2 years. This kid's got 300 career blocks. They've already done it at this level. That's a guarantee. Yeah. The freshman's not a guarantee. So now you're putting yourself up against people that are grown men,
right?
You know, and
especially if they're like maybe a grad school, like a graduate transfer, or you know they stay all 4 years and they're not leaving because of bad fit or maybe characterological issues. Because some of y'all may not know this, but a lot of sports coaches all know each other, and if they don't, they still will call and be like, "Yo, why is this kid in the portal? Oh, we had this issue off the field, and now that's known." And then it's kind of like, so yeah, I think sometimes people, they get a misperception. It's like, all coaches got to do is like, are they transferring because it wasn't a good fit? Or are they transferring because they weren't a good fit for some reason? And then it's like, well, I don't want them, but this person, they played 4 years, they're getting ready to graduate, they have extra eligibility. I'd rather have them. I see their body of work, maybe even if they're not a graduate, it's like, you might have recruited this person. They just happen to go out. It's like that one that got away, but then something happened is like, oh, okay, I know their situation. I can reach out to them, find out, talk to the coach. And it's like, well, yeah, I definitely wanted them. And I know they'd be a good fit, and it just wasn't there. You know, it's like that second chance of love kind of a thing.
Right.
And it's like, or I could go take this freshman who I got to worry about, do they have the family support, right? Are there other things that do as an institution that we have, do we have the things that they may need as an institution to support them that I might not know about that they're going to need, you know? And it's like,
there's all these unknowns,
yeah.
And those unknowns could work out for you, or they could not. But if you ever have a sure thing, right, which to me a sure thing is somebody who's already proven themselves in the NCAA, you can see their body of work, because a lot of high schools, Yeah, maybe you're in a conference where you're just beating up on a bunch of lesser teams and your stats are overinflated or whatever, right? But when you get to college, I can see that this person's played Princeton, they played, you know, uh, UCLA. I've seen the numbers that they put up against these teams. Well, you're as sure a thing as anything,
Right.
as long as you don't have some kind of pre-existing injury or something like that. But what you said about the coaches talking, I've been told that on the women's side, it's a little more tight-lipped. People aren't friendly. On the men's side, people are pretty friendly. Obviously, everybody wants to guard their trade secrets and things like that. But if there's somebody that's transferring out of a program that people know the coach, and that coach sits there and says, yeah, it's because of this, this, and this, and it's all these red flags, no way I'm answering that email. No way I'm picking up that phone. Not happening. I would rather bring people in that I can mold, people that want to be here, as opposed to somebody who's already shown that they didn't make a good decision the first time and they have all these red flags. Why do I want that? That's only going to make my job harder, especially when you know you've got two equal talents, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, there was my boss, she used this reference about poisoning the well. It's like, you got to worry about, like, are they going to do something that's going to contaminate the rest of the group, like in the cohesion? You know, it's like they could be a great player. However, they're going to have such a negative impact on everybody around them. It's like, we can't have that. It's like, you know, I'd rather, you know, a lot of coaches make decisions like, I'd rather lose some more games. Yet these games I could probably win with this person, but at what cost? And it's like, I'm not going to let them drive a wedge between the team and whatnot.
Right.
And it's like, you know, we got to take that into account as well.
That's funny that you said that, because if any of my guys who listen right now, they heard you say poison the well and they started laughing because I said that. I would rather cut you from the team than keep you around and have to deal with your shenanigans. So culture is a very tough thing to have. And if you know, there are times when guys don't know they don't have that mental resilience. So the first thing they do is they lash out, right? Everything is somebody else's fault. It's never, hey, I just wasn't good enough, or hey, I need to work harder, or let me wrestle with the idea that 6 months ago I was finding every excuse I could to take days off. And now that person that wasn't taking days off just beat me out. And now I want to blame the coach, right? And so some guys handle that better than others. But when somebody loses their job or something like that and they become cancerous, you gotta cut them off. Yeah, you gotta cut them off, because the culture of the team is something that's gonna kind of transcend one class, right? If you want to do it right, I mean, you look at the coaches that have done it right, and there's plenty to be named here, but you got coaches that have been in the same job with the same group for 15, 20 years, and you've got kids that you've got, you know, one class of kids that knows alumni from 10 years ago, and it's all because it's all one band of focused culture. You don't want to destroy that for anybody. And sometimes the best player will be the guy who poisons the well the most. And if you let him sit there and do it, you're going to see that everybody else starts to get poisoned a little bit too. If they start to see, if you allow one person, sometimes it isn't about what you allow or what you don't allow. It's about what you allow, right? If you're just complicit in the way that you just don't say anything,
enabling, yeah,
right? You will make more problems for yourself, because people see that. It's not always about this, right? Everybody likes to talk, but what do you do, right? How do you show up? How do you present yourself? Yeah, that really speaks for who somebody is, more so than all the talking. Yeah. And if you're going to let somebody do that to your team, you're not only letting them do it to you, but you're letting them do it to all those other players who believe in what you're doing. Yeah. And that can be tough. So I can tell you that as I built this program, there were times when I could have maybe sacrificed, kind of jumped ahead a little bit in the win column to bring in this player or that player because they were very good. But I questioned whether or not that would hurt the foundation of what we're building. And so there are times I wish we did have a guy that, you know, could be a 20 kill guy every game or whatever. But if you don't have the foundation of your program set up, especially early on, if you're not having a bunch of people that embody the principles that you're trying to have be the core of who you're going to be going forward, and you sacrifice that for one guy, yeah, you might get the wins that day, but where are you year 2, year 3? And that's where it starts to impact you. That guy comes in for a year, he does great. You look like a great coach. That guy transfers out because in the end, he was all about himself anyway, and now he wants to go to a bigger school, right? Okay, great. Well, now all those people that were left in the dust when you brought that person in and let him do all the crap that he was doing, now that person's gone, and you're left with all these people that were harmed by this, and now you're back to square one, rebuilding that culture, right? So, in my younger days, I fretted really hard about feeling like, man, my team was so prepared. We did so good in film. We knew everything about this team. We outcoached them, and still we couldn't win because I just don't have the players that they have or whatever. There's probably some fairness to that, right? But when you want to do something that exists long past when you're there, right? That's what I tell the guys. If we do this right, what you believe in now will be what they believe in later, long after you're gone. And if I do this right, hopefully I can be at Maryville until I literally drop dead on the court. That's my goal, is just to drop dead on the
It's
court.
like
They
just
wheel me
bury me in the center of the court. You know?
out. Right.
Right. Like, they know I'm there. Yeah.
But if I think that if it doesn't work out like that, you can be seen as a failure. But the short term progress, the short term accolades are very empty, very hollow when you don't have the long term goals underneath it. And so that's really kind of how I'm trying to build this program. I have a lot more means at my disposal to do it this way than I did at my other school. My other school was built literally on the backs of just some very gritty people that were just gamers. They came there, they wanted to be a part of the program. It wasn't really about the school. It wasn't really about anything but that volleyball team. And I had some absolute soldiers on that team. I mean, year in and year out, guys that I respect, among the highest I respect anybody to this day. Having the knowledge now going forward, it's all about the culture. It's all about what we build and leave behind. One day I will not be here. One day I will not be the coach, right? Hopefully it's a long time from now. I feel so blessed to literally be coaching in my backyard, right? But ultimately, if I do this right, if we collectively as a team do this right, you will be just as proud of this team when you're 35 years old as you are right now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do, but that's the goal.